Dow futures have no idea what they're going to do. Martha McSally introduces a bill to keep senators from getting paid if they can't pay the American people. An unlikely subject donates a bunch of masks to the coronavirus relief effort. And Trump talks about when we will get back to normal. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So it looks like Restream is having an issue at this point, telling me what's live and what isn't. So I'm not sure where I'm sitting right here. I've got monitors going and I'll be able to see if anything goes down here, but it won't show me what's connected and what is not. And the live chat is down on my desktop, but I've got my tablet, my old phone, and my current phone all sitting here watching the live chat. So fear not, you can still chat and I'll still shout you out on Friday because I will be able to see who is chatting here. We've got a lot to get to today. Not as much as usual, but we do still have a lot to get to today. But before we do anything, make sure you head on over to freedomscoop.com. We want Freedom Scoop to be your one-stop place for all of your news commentary. So go and check us out over there. You can check out this show. My interview show, Ed's World, is over there. All my video games streams show up over there. You can find The Generational Gap and check them out. You can find Stephen Ignoramus' streams. You can find Wyatt Birkenhoff's solo video streams, or not streams, but series rather. And you can find the R-rated conservative, who has now gone daily. So go over there and check everybody out. Meanwhile, we are looking at quite the day here. First, looking at the Dow, it looks like nobody knows what the Dow is going to do today. Now, keep in mind, they had a record day yesterday. Absolutely. They had the best day since 1987, which is amazing at this point. But in the live blog here, we'll see what CNBC has to say. Stock market live updates. Futures turn negative. Stimulus bill agreement. Dow's historic day. So this is a live blog here. Contributing is Pippa Stevens, Maggie Fitzgerald, and Jesse Pound. 8:16 a.m. Bullard second quarter will be the biggest hit, but impact will be short term. Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis President James Bullard said the coronavirus outbreak will be a large hit to second quarter GDP, but that the impact will be short term. This isn't at all comparable to past events in U.S. macroeconomic history, he said, adding, as far as the timeline, no one really knows. For planning purposes, we want to think about the second quarter as a big hit quarter. If we can get this to work right, everything will snap back to normal when this is over, he said. So this is another person who is completely positive of the idea that we will get back to where we were and possibly even better by the end of this. And this is coming from the Federal Reserve, and I don't believe they are big fans of our president by any stretch of the imagination. 8:11 a.m., Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis President James Bullard says $2 trillion stimulus package looks right. Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis President James Bullard said the $2 trillion stimulus bill that the White House and Congress agreed to early Wednesday morning looks about right. This is about relief, not stimulus, he said Wednesday on CNBC's Squawk Box. He also noted that Q2 real GDP will be reduced on purpose to meet health objectives. That's an interesting take on that. I'll have to look into that for tomorrow's episode. 8:04 a.m. Markets can rise 15% by year end. Credit Suisse's Garth Waite says. Credit Suisse global equity strategist Andrew Garth Waite said in a note to his clients that equity markets could gain 15% by the end of the year as global economies move past the coronavirus pandemic. Garth Waite said in the note that the low interest rates from aggressive central bank action, the success of Korea and China in returning to work, and the historical pattern of bear markets all support the idea of a strong bounce back for the rest of the year. The investments in medical infrastructure should also limit the potential for a second wave of the virus in the fall. The note said, we assume 6 to 8 week full lockdown in Europe and the US before the majority of the workers return on the basis that in 2 to 3 months' time treatments, testing, and ventilators will be far more able to accommodate a second spike, the note said. So that's a little bit of good news that we hear coming off of this. I still don't think we're going to be out for 6 weeks, but we will see. And I know that everybody that's involved is trying to make this go right. Even the president himself, and his approval rating's up to show it. So we'll talk about that in just a bit here. Let's see what Investors Business Daily has to say. This is from Alan R. Elliott, who we read from every morning, it appears. Dow Jones today, futures mixed ahead of stimulus vote. Boeing, Tesla soar, Nike up on earnings. Stock futures were tightly mixed Wednesday, trading under the shadow of an historic U.S. Senate vote on a stimulus package estimated at $2 trillion. The legislation, due for a vote later today, aims to counter the economic effects of the still raging coronavirus pandemic. Pre-market action was choppy, with airlines, casinos, and cruise lines rallying, while big tech names held back. On the Dow Jones today, Boeing led, Nike soared on earnings, and Apple traded flat after an analyst upgrade. Nike's probably going to need it, because there are a lot of people like me that said that we're not going to buy their shoes anymore, so they are probably going to need a little bit of the help. I just wanted to see if they actually decided to kick over here. So Dow Jones futures wrestled out early losses and into fraction gain. Almost half of the index's 30 stocks traded lower on the stock market today. Nasdaq futures slipped 1.6%, S&P 500 futures were down 1.8%. Oil prices slipped modestly, with West Texas Intermediate off by 1.9%. and trading below $24 a barrel. Oil is trying to turn a steep 4-week price dive. Bonds rose incrementally, sending the 10-year yield down 3 basis points to 0.82%. MGM Resorts made the biggest move among S&P 500 stocks, up more than 15%, as it looked to add a fifth day to its rebound. American Airlines and United Airlines led an industry rally, up more than 10% each. A reported $61 billion piece of the coronavirus stimulus package is aimed at aviation sector companies. Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google parent Alphabet dipped modest losses in early trade. Chip stocks were not rebounding, with iShares PHLX Semiconductor ETF down 1% in pre-market action. So we're going up, we're going down. It's going to be interesting to see what happens today with the Senate and the White House ready to make a deal here, and we'll talk a bit about that in just a little bit. But I mean, this is looking good, and I mean, the airlines are going to be held up at this point. As much as I would rather see them restructure themselves to do it themselves, this is an act of God. This isn't an act of bad management. So if they need a little bit of help to get through an act of God, I'm less worried about that. I still don't like it, but it worries me less than if this was just mismanagement like we saw in the 2008 crash. So let's see what happens there. Before we get into the stimulus bill, we are going to get behind some of the ideas that one senator brought up to make sure that they got to the stimulus bill. So this is from The Blaze. This is from Breck Dumas at The Blaze. GOP senator introduces bill to withhold senators' pay until coronavirus relief passed. If Americans aren't getting paid, then neither should we. Arizona Republican Senator Martha McSally has formally introduced legislation that would withhold the pay of U.S. senators until the upper chamber's passage of the coronavirus relief package. What are the details? If Americans aren't getting paid, then neither should we, McSally tweeted Thursday. I introduced my bill to withhold Senate pay until we pass COVID-19 relief package. The Senate has been arguing over the third phase of a coronavirus package for days, while an increasing number of Americans are losing their jobs as businesses shut down due to social distancing measures aimed at stopping the pandemic. Several Republicans have expressed outrage from the Senate floor after Democrats blocked what was believed to be a pre-negotiated bipartisan bill on Sunday night and again on Monday. As of Tuesday afternoon, the Senate still had no deal approved, leading McSally to introduce her legislation as she threatened the day before. At least one of McSally's colleagues hinted that he would support such a measure. Tuesday evening, Senator Lindsey Graham, of course because he's famous, told Fox News, "Here's what I say. If we don't have a bill in the next 48 hours, every member and every staff person up here should lose their pay and their benefits until we pass a bill. So this is pretty much dead in the water. But it's a good highlight and it's a good soundbite to get out there to give the idea, of course, that the GOP is working for the people, which has been something the mainstream media has been trying to push them down on for my entire life. McSally would rather go without a paycheck and see everybody else do that than the American people suffer. And Tim Pool was pointing out, too, I was watching this yesterday. Tim Pool was pointing out the fact that, the GOP gave up their vacation in order to make sure that the American people were paid for all of this, that the American people got the relief. The Democrats still went on their vacation, but the GOP stayed in the chamber and argued about this, and some key Democrat leaders did as well, especially on the Senate side. So the key leaders, Schumer and a lot of his people, stayed just to make sure that all of this got worked through. And then, of course, Nancy Pelosi came back from her vacation and started throwing stones. So it looks like this passed, and it looks like this won't come to fruition anyway, but it's a really good soundbite, and it's a good strategy if the GOP wants to retain control of the upper chamber. So, speaking of the stimulus package here, White House, Senate strike deal on historic $2 trillion coronavirus relief bill, but House support remains uncertain. This is from Greg Ree over at Fox News. White House and Senate leaders reached a historic deal shortly after midnight Wednesday on a massive $2 trillion coronavirus relief package for workers and businesses, although support in the House of Representatives remained uncertain as one member openly criticized the plan. The bipartisan breakthrough in the Senate capped days of heated negotiation that had nearly been derailed by last-minute demands from House Democrats. Ladies and gentlemen, we are done, White House Legislative Affairs Director Eric Wieland announced as he left the office of Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell near midnight. We have a deal. Wieland told reporters that much of the work on bill text has been completed, and I'm hopeful over the next few hours we'll finish what's left and we will circulate early in the morning. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said the bill amounts to unemployment compensation on steroids, and that every American who is laid off will have their missed salary remunerated. That provision will enable companies to stay afloat and immediately bring back those employees when things are safe, Schumer said. I don't like that. I don't like one sentence of that. The unprecedented economic rescue package would give direct payments to most Americans, expand unemployment benefits, and provide a $367 billion program for small businesses to keep making payroll while their workers are forced to stay at home. I don't care for any of that either. Some of this I know is a necessary evil, but that does not mean that I have to care for it. One of the last issues to close concerned $500 billion for guaranteed, subsidized loans to larger industries, including a fight over how generous to be with the airlines, given that Democrats wanted them to abide by new carbon emissions restrictions. Hospitals would get significant help as well. Yeah, of course, this has all been about pet projects, and we've known that from the beginning. So, in a letter to his colleagues, Schumer remarked, Democrats are ready to give our unanimous consent to speed up the consideration of the bill and get the job done. That means that if there are no objections from Republicans, the Senate could clear the bill without a formal roll call vote. Parliamentarily, that is the fastest way to move something on the floor. So, they got the deal done, and of course now Twitter is trying to shame everybody who was in support of it, saying, well, the GOP isn't socialist until it affects their pocketbook. I saw a lot of that this morning while I was looking for news stories to round out the show here. And this isn't socialism. I don't like it because I don't like the government being involved in this, and I still abide by the fact that that check is going right back to Washington, D.C. once it hits my hand, because I haven't missed a day at work. In fact, I've had to work a little bit more, but I have not missed a single day of work off of this. My industry is essential, they tell me. I'm not sure how, but I'll take it because I like to go to work every day. And even still, I'm pretty sure, like I said, if I had 2 weeks uninterrupted to work on the Freedom Scoop project, I probably wouldn't be going back to that job. Nothing against them. It's just I would rather be doing this and doing this for you guys than going and working in a warehouse every day. So I have no need for this bailout and stimulus package. I have absolutely no need for it whatsoever. Hell, I can't even go out and spend money. So it's just kind of sitting there right now, paying bills and not being spent on frivolous crap. And I do hope that a lot of the people that aren't furloughed will have the same idea. I'm sure that a lot of them are going to cash the check and go out and buy something. If they can go find a place to buy something anyway. And it's, I guess, if the government's going to send it to them, it's their prerogative to do so, but still. I mean, come on. But anyway, that is just where I stand on this. Now, we're going to have an idea of what's going to come out of the House with this, because we don't know what the House is going to do with what the White House and Senate have come together to do. The two chambers, or the two branches of government, rather, they're not even branches. The upper chamber and the White House can put pressure on the House to get this done, because the American people are starving, so. But it is up to them to figure out what they're going to do. So this is also from Fox News. This is from Joshua Nelson over there. Trump on House Democrats' coronavirus relief bill. No way I'm signing that deal with Green New Deal stuff. President Trump said Tuesday that he would not support an emergency coronavirus response bill pitched by the House Democrats earlier this week. Nancy Pelosi came out and put a lot of things in that deal that had nothing to do with workers, that had to do with an agenda that they have been trying to get passed for 10 years, Trump told Fox News in a special virtual town hall. I came in, I told Mike, I told a lot of people, there's no way I'm signing that deal, the president added. Trump said Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had almost reached an agreement on the response bill over the weekend before Democrats suddenly injected the Green New Deal into the mix. We want green energy, let's stop drilling oil. They had things in there that were horrible, Trump said. Windmills all over the place, and all sorts of credits for windmills. They kill the birds and ruin real estate. A lot of problems. I have yet to see evidence that they kill the birds, and I am in favor of green energy. I just don't want the government to subsidize it. Especially given the fact that, of course, it takes more energy to make the windmill than the windmill will ever produce. It'll take more coal and more energy to make the windmill than the windmill will offset. So that is something to keep in mind, because what does it take to make steel? But yeah, go ahead, Trump, the birds. The president's comments came one day after Senate Democrats blocked legislation from moving forward for a second time, claiming the plan did too much for large corporations and not enough for workers. Republicans accused them of playing politics and using the crisis as leverage to try and jam through an unrelated political wish list. Yes. Now, I haven't read the Democrats' bill, but I've read the shorthand version that they put out in the beginning. When Nancy Pelosi released it, she put out a shorthand saying all the demands that they wanted to have into the bill. And yeah, a lot of that it's a lot of propaganda and a lot of wish lists that they've been going on to. So it was loaded with pork. The GOP one out of the Senate was also loaded with pork, but to a different degree. And of course, the pork that they had in was trying to make sure that people still had jobs to come back to once all of this was over. So pork all around, but not pork in, well, once again, it depends on the way where the pork went. So that was fun. But amid all of this, of course, we have a Gallup story that really surprised me a lot. This is from yesterday. From Jeffrey M. Jones, President Trump's job approval rating up to 49%, which is amazing. And this is one poll, so of course we're going to want to see what the aggregate is to this. But I mean, given the fact that the media has done nothing but tear the president down for the last 3.5 years, they have done nothing, even further than that. Probably back into the last 4 or even 5 years, they've done nothing but run story after story about how terrible this man is and how we're headed to pre-World War II Germany and all this other stuff because he is in all that negative attention, and he is up to 49%. Meanwhile, Barack, who got nothing but praise and positive reviews from the media, was slightly below this at the same time in his presidency. That's something to keep in mind. The difference in media coverage versus the approval rating. President Donald Trump may be enjoying a small rally in public support as the nation faces COVID-19. 49% of U.S. adults, up from 44% earlier this month, approve of the job Trump is doing as president. Trump also had 49% job approval ratings, the best in his presidency, in late January and early February, around the time of the Senate impeachment trial that resulted in his acquittal. So once again, this is one poll, so look for aggregates because aggregates are going to tell the whole story, but still. Independents and Democrats' approval of Trump's performance has increased slightly since earlier this month, tying as the best he has ever registered to date. Among each group, the president's approval rating among Republicans was already above 90% and remains so, but is not currently at its highest on record, 94% in late January. Trump's response to the novel coronavirus pandemic may be behind his higher overall approval rating. Americans give the president generally positive reviews for his handling of the situation. I mean, yeah, Ilhan Omar said he was doing a good job. And she hates the guy. With 60% approving and 38% disapproving. 94% of Republicans, 60% of independents, and 27% of Democrats approve of his response. The Trump administration has received some criticism for the response to COVID-19 pandemic, including that the president downplayed the threat, at least up until his nationally televised address on March 11th. On March 16th, Trump acknowledged the seriousness of the situation by urging people to avoid gatherings of more than 10 people and to have workers and students stay home if possible. The administration has had daily press conferences since then to update the nation on what the federal government is doing to address the situation, and also to give fodder to people on Twitter to complain and bitch about. So, I mean, this is absolutely interesting, and this is fascinating to me, the fact that he's moving up like this, because, of course, if you're on Twitter, there's a completely different air of everything, and Twitter's not real life. You have to keep that in mind. There's, 2% of America is on Twitter. So, it's not real life. It's the people who shout the loudest and get the most shares is what Twitter is, and outrage drives things. So, you have to keep that in mind when you're watching this, and looking at independent media as well, because some of them are going to be pure opinion based, and I'm not going to lie, that's kind of where I am right now, and some of that is going to be going out and finding facts. So, but to have this poll out there, I would love to see the aggregate. After I get off of this, I'm going to go and see what the aggregate is, because, I mean, just this is incredible. This is amazing. So let's look at some of the other relief that's going on to the COVID-19 crisis here. And we had some charity come from an unlikely source. This is from ABC 14 News, Brandon G. Jones. Pornhub donates 50,000 masks to help coronavirus responders. Pornhub stars may perhaps not generally use security, but it desires to assist very first responders get some during the coronavirus disaster. That was a word soup and salad that I could not even believe or even try to read, but I understand the sentiment behind it. The Smut Streaming Huge has donated 50,000 surgical masks to New York metropolis area employees on the front lines of the pandemic, even though opening up its enormous porn library for totally free. Okay, ABC 14, you need an editor. The donations aspect of Pornhub's COVID-19 aid efforts announced Tuesday come as professional medical workers in the Big Apple and elsewhere confront a scarcity of protective equipment as the lethal virus threatens to overwhelm well-being care suppliers. These masks are mission crucial in the combat versus the COVID pandemic, reported Joe Calderon, Senior Vice President at Extended Islands Mount Sinai South Nassau Hospital, which received 20,000 masks from Pornhub. They will assist and preserve our nurses, physicians. Wow. Okay, I can't read much more of this here, but you get the gist of it here. Yeah, ABC 14 definitely needs an editor, but yeah, Pornhub stepped up to make sure that we got some of these masks out here. So, good job on these guys. I know a lot of people don't like them for other reasons, and Matt Walsh probably will have something to say about this later, but yeah, that was interesting to see. So now we also have the other side of this of people that didn't take this seriously, even more so than the president at first. Missouri Walmart coronavirus liquor charged with terrorist threat. This is from Doyle Murphy over at Riverfront Times. A Warrenton man was charged with making a terrorist threat after he filmed himself licking a bunch of items at Walmart. Who's afraid of the coronavirus? Cody Pfister, 26, taunts in a video he later posted to social media. The video spread around the world, and Warrenton police said in a statement the department had been contacted by people in the Netherlands, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. We take these complaints very seriously and would like to thank all of those who reported the video so the issue could be addressed, police said in a statement. The video appears to have been filmed on March 11th at the Warrenton store, according to court records. Pfister was taken into custody this week, and Warren County prosecutors charged him today. The charge is a low-level felony. Bizarrely, he's not the first person to get in trouble with police for licking surfaces, as public health officials beg people to wash their hands, keeping at least 6 feet apart, and avoid touching their faces in hopes of slowing the spread of the COVID-19. The manager of a grocery store in Wisconsin called police after a woman licked the door handle to a freezer, reportedly to protest the virus while a manager was disinfecting the store. Excuse me. There have been more than 44,000 confirmed cases of the coronavirus and more than 500 deaths in the United States, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The city of St. Louis announced its first death, a woman in her 30s, just yesterday. Pfister was booked in the Warren County Jail without bond. He has previous convictions for burglary, theft of a firearm, drug possession, and driving while intoxicated. So, good job. And they'll get somebody like this off the streets, because he probably needed to be anyway, and he's just an idiot on top of this. It would be even funnier, too, if he's trying to spread the disease and he doesn't even have it, but they'd have to go and get him tested for it first. In a similar story, New Jersey man who coughed on a Wegmans worker to face charges of terroristic threats, governor says. This is from Louis Casiano over at Fox News. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy on Tuesday chided a man facing charges for allegedly coughing on a grocery store employee, then claiming he contracted the coronavirus. Murphy, a Democrat, said George Falcone, 50, was charged with terroristic threats, harassment, and obstruction, NJ.com reported. The alleged incident happened at the Wegmans grocery store chains in Manalapan, some 50 miles south of New York City. There are knuckleheads out there. We see them, and we are enforcing behavior, Murphy said during a news briefing. Falcone, of Freehold, was at the Wegmans on Sunday when a female employee became concerned that he was not practicing social distancing and standing too close to her. She asked him to step back as she covered an open display of prepared food, New Jersey Attorney General Gurbir Grewal said in a news release. Falcone moved forward and coughed, laughed, and said he had contracted the virus, Grewal's office said. He allegedly then told two other employees they were lucky to have their jobs. There's a scientific term for somebody like this. What is it? What's the scientific term for somebody like this? Oh yeah, asshole. Seriously. We can make fun and joke about this, and we probably will be for years after this, for the social distancing, the coughing, and whatnot right now, but we're in the middle of this right now. Well, he's another one, too. I would love to see him get tested and see if he actually had it or not. And if he didn't have it, he should just be locked up for general assholery. I know there's no statute for that, but Jesus. What a dick. Let's see, what else do we have here? More responses and more municipalities trying to respond and get all of this done here. So this is from KTLA 5 out of Hollywood, Los Angeles. Mayor Garcetti announces water and power will be shut off for non-essential LA businesses that don't close. This is from Serene Habeshian and Mary Beth McDade. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti opened his daily briefing Tuesday, recognizing what may have been the first teenage COVID-19 death in LA County, and went on to announce actions against non-essential businesses that don't close and a new portal for recruiting medics. He reminded young people that the virus can hit them too, urging them to stay home and practice social distancing. Your behavior can save a life and take a life, Garcetti said, and that life could be yours. The mayor addressed President Trump's remarks from earlier Tuesday about having the nation opened up, just raring to go by Easter. Garcetti said he didn't think LA would be back to normal in that short time. We won't extend it one day longer than we need to, Garcetti said, but emphasized that the safer at home measure had to be followed through. The mayor said LA is 6 to 12 days behind New York in being hit with a first wave of positive cases. The peak is not here yet, he said. It will be bad. Garcetti emphasized the need for medical workers who can test, treat, heal, and tend to coronavirus patients. He announced that, together with LA County, the city has opened up a portal for medical personnel recruitment, with both paid and pro bono positions. We need to be prepared for some of the darkness that is ahead, the mayor said. Each one of us can be a light. We can light a match of hope. We can navigate this tunnel with each other and not alone. And more importantly, what we can do is ensure that more people exit that tunnel together and that our city will rise again. Imagine all the people. That's what I think of when I read that paragraph. The mayor went on to announce the Business Ambassadors Program, an effort to get non-essential businesses to close. This behavior is irresponsible and selfish, he said of those that remain open. He said the Department of Water and Power will shut off services for the businesses that don't comply with the Safer at Home ordinance. Neighborhood prosecutors will implement the safety measures and will contact the business before issuing further action. So, this is a bit scary. Now, I do agree at this point, especially if you're getting, I still don't believe that COVID is as bad as they say it is, but the panic that comes behind it is. And that's what we need to keep in mind when we're addressing this, is what the public will think and what the public will pump into this. So with the panicky mindset in place, we do need to start doing the social distancing so we can keep people calmed and get them back to work and get everything back to moving again. But for the government to come down and use utilities to force it on people sets a dangerous precedent that I think will be abused later on in the future as well. So we've got to keep that in mind, because any precedent that we set right now is going to be used when somebody with questionable ethics goes into government. And I've seen a lot of people that go into government, and a lot of them have questionable ethics. In other responses, thanks to the Arizona couple who were so eager to make sure they didn't get the COVID-19, Nevada governor bans malaria drugs for coronavirus patients. This is from Tamar Lapine over at the New York Post. Nevada's governor on Tuesday banned the use of anti-malaria drugs chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine to treat coronavirus patients. Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak's executive order came after President Trump touted the medication as holding promise for combating the illness. Sisolak said there was no consensus among experts or Nevada doctors that the drug can treat people with COVID-19. Yeah, what are you going to say when the FDA approves this? Seriously. His order also limits a prescription of the medicines which are also used to treat illnesses like lupus and arthritis to a 30-day supply to ensure it's available for legitimate medical purposes and so people don't stockpile the drug. Trump helped create a flurry of demand for the drugs when he announced last week that the chloroquine could be a game changer and the FDA had approved it as a treatment for the coronavirus sufferers, which it is not. Trump also said hydroxychloroquine could be used in the prevention. I am going to verify that he actually said the FDA had approved it because I don't remember him saying that. It could have happened. I could have missed that, but I want to verify that one. But the country's leading infectious disease doctor, Anthony Fauci, said there's no substantive proof, at least yet, that either drug works in the battle against the deadly pandemic, only anecdotal information. So, yeah, they're going to need to do some testing on this, but I mean, we do have the right to try bill or law into place at this point, so there are people that'll volunteer for it. And yes, as predicted, Sisolak's order came a day after a Phoenix area man died, and his wife was in critical condition after taking an additive used to clean fish tanks called chloroquine phosphate, similar to the drug used to treat malaria. No, it is not similar to the drug. They just have they're completely different chemically because of the phosphate. I knew that was going to screw things up when they did that. So now we head on over to ABC News because Trump is talking about lifting the social distancing guidelines because he would like to see us get back to work so we don't have to depend on the government for things. So, what might Trump's relaxed social distancing guidelines look like? This is from Catherine Falters and John Santucci. The White House is considering a number of different options to loosen the administration's 15-day guidelines on social distancing designed to slow the coronavirus spread, including a gradually scaling back of the restrictions based on age and location, sources familiar with the discussions said Tuesday. One option under consideration by the administration is recommending that people under 40 go back to work on a yet-to-be-determined date, followed by ages 40 to 50 and so on, according to sources briefed on the internal discussions who were not authorized to speak about the plans publicly. Sources said the restrictions for those 60 and older and with underlying conditions could be significantly longer. There are also discussions about gradually scaling back the restrictions based on location, with advisors have also suggested limiting public transportation for those they recommend can go back to work, sources said. While the discussions are still fluid and in the early stages, there are a variety of ideas being floated on how to move forward, many of which go against the advice of health experts, who have publicly stated that the worst is yet to come. Tuesday is the 9th day of the 15-day effort. President Donald Trump's former Homeland Security advisor Tom Bossert warned on ABC's Good Morning America Tuesday that loosening the restrictions could fail if done the wrong way. I think everybody shares his frustration and his hope, but what he needs to do is avoid second waves and reinfections. At this state, we've paid very heavy costs to our economy and in our lives. To lose the benefit of it at this point by not sticking to our guns would be a really devastating decision, Bossert said. Now, can we do it? That requires testing. It requires more aggressive isolation and not in people's homes, but somewhere they can be controlled, and it requires quarantining the people they come into contact with. So, we've been saying for a while that we need to make sure that the cure for this is not worse than the disease itself. And I fully stand by that. Because once again, if we drop into a depression and people have to starve to death, lose their homes, lose their cars, or many, many other possibilities that could come from this, to save 300 lives, we got to think about that at some point here. If you lose 10,000 people to save 300, where's the balance? And I do agree that especially with the panic behind this, we need to find a balance somewhere in this. So I don't know what the answer is on that, and I'm not the president, so I'm not expected to know what the answer is on that, but we need to figure out what the balance is. Now, in a couple of other stories that we have here, also on COVID, because that's all we can talk about on this show for whatever reason, Prince Charles tests positive for novel coronavirus. This is from Emma Reynolds, Max Foster, and David Wilkinson over on CNN World. Prince Charles, Queen Elizabeth II's son, and the heir to the British throne, has tested positive for coronavirus and is now self-isolating in Scotland. You notice how many famous people got this? Something to think about. The Prince of Wales is only displaying mild symptoms and is otherwise in good health, Clarence House said in a statement. It is not known how the 71-year-old caught the virus because of his busy schedule of public events in recent weeks. Buckingham Palace said the Queen remained in good health last Tuesday. The palace said the 93-year-old monarch was canceling public events as a sensible precaution, and she and her husband, 98-year-old Prince Philip, moved to Windsor Castle on Thursday, a week earlier than planned. She is expected to stay there beyond the Easter period. In a statement issued by the palace, they moved to Windsor, the Queen said. The world was entering a period of great concern and uncertainty, and warned that many would need to find new ways of staying in touch with each other and making sure that loved ones are safe. She said she and her family were ready to play their part. The Queen last saw Prince Charles briefly after an investiture ceremony for public awards at Buckingham Palace in London on March 12th. A palace spokeswoman said she was following all the appropriate advice with regard to her welfare. Wait, he's 71? And he's the next one to be the king? Wow. I thought for sure at some point they'd skip him. I thought they were talking about it for a while, too. So that's interesting. And of course, it's another famous person that got this. And I mean, I don't discount the fact that it's out there, but it's odd to me that I've never met anybody that has it. I don't know anybody that has it. I haven't seen anything on social media from somebody that's had it, so that's odd to me. But once again, it's only affected a little bit over not even 1%, a little over 0.1% of the U.S. So the odds are stacked against all of us on whether or not we know somebody. And of course, there have been very, very few deaths. We did get on top of this. I know a lot of people like to say that the president is responsible for every single death, which he's not, especially given the fact that the spring breakers ran out and said, okay, we're going to do this anyway. So, a lot of things to think about on this. Lastly, I want to give probably the most pointless take on all of this here. This is from Josh Hawley over in the Senate is where Josh Hawley is. This is from Charles Kreitz, over at Fox News. Hawley slams China for costing the world thousands of lives and billions of dollars with the coronavirus response. Senator Josh Hawley, Republican Missouri, said Tuesday night that China must be made to pay literally for economic damage to the United States caused by the coronavirus, which originated in Wuhan, Hubei province. Hawley told Hannity that the U.S. He was on Hannity. Okay, that's a big part of the reason that this happened. That the U.S. government had offered to send medical teams and scientists to China in order to aid their recovery and find out exactly what happened in the country. China said no, they have been lying around or about it and sitting on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that has cost the world thousands of deaths. It cost us here in this country, Hawley said. The senator also called for an international investigation that will hold the Chinese government to account and fight Beijing's state-run propaganda machine that he said has helped spread rumors implicating the American military in the pandemic. So, this is a completely pointless take right now, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, yes, with the way that China handled it, I do think that we may need to seek some sort of retribution for what they did, especially in public opinion. And I think that with the globalism, I don't think that globalism is going to be as appealing with all of this happening. And I think once we're out of it, we're going to start seeing a lot more manufacturing coming in domestically. Because our supply chains got interrupted, we lost a lot of our drug processing, and we might have to see prices go up, but it's going to be made here at this point. I think. Don't quote me on that because that actually might not be the case. We have no idea what people are going to do and what laws and bills are going to be promoted to try and make it easier for us to trade globally. So keep that in mind that the government is going to have a hand in what's going to go on here. But this is a completely pointless take because it happened. It's over. What China did can never be undone. We can throw fines at them. We can throw other stuff at them all day and night. But in the end of it, they can't get in their time machine and go back and handle the crisis better than they did before. Right now, we are trying to get people back to work, to make sure people keep roofs over their head and food in their bellies and medicine in their stomachs to make sure that all of this goes away and we can rebound in our economy. After all this crisis is over, if Hawley wants to go and scream and sue the Chinese government and do all sorts of other things, do it afterwards. Right now, we have to focus on the American people. Especially given the fact that nobody knows what the House is going to do on a relief package that, once again, I don't want to see go out, but I do see as a necessary evil to make sure that all of this gets taken care of and we do get back to the way that we were before all of this broke out. And I do see a rebound coming out of this as well, and I see manufacturing coming back. Like a lot of people have said, we saw supply chains get interrupted that we never thought we could see get interrupted, so if it's made here, it doesn't get interrupted. And that's not even counting the spread of the virus that would have come back because of the fact that we were getting so many things from China. So that's what I have to say on that. Yes, okay, the sentiment is great. And as soon as we get through this, you go right ahead, Hawley, and you introduce bills to do this. We'll see how they fare in your chamber of the government. So on Wednesday, and I did do this last week because we were running behind on time, but on Wednesday, we talk about what I'm thankful for. So this is what I'm thankful for. This crisis has changed the way that we look at things. Social distancing means that not everybody's going out for many, many things. They're not going to work, so people can't check up on them there. They can't verify when people stop working. They're not going out to bars, clubs, so people don't wonder when they don't see them out at many of these places. They're not going to get their nails done. They're not going to get their hair cut. They're not doing a lot of things. And why I'm thankful for this is not necessarily to grind the economy to a halt. It is to think about what happens when you stop seeing people out and about and in various places. So, a few years ago, when I got really depressed, when my last relationship was falling apart, I isolated myself, which is fine. I didn't go on social media. I didn't call anybody. I went to my parents' house a couple times, mainly to check up on the plants that I had left up there, but for the most part, I had dropped out of everybody's lives because my ex didn't want me around, and I felt like nobody else should want me around either. And nobody called to check up on me, which was the thing that bothered me the most, because I realized that I could just disappear out of life and nobody would even care. Nobody would ever care, and that is a draining feeling on yourself. It's part of the reason I'm amazed that I got up and started being able to do this channel, because I knew that I'd felt that way in the past. One of the things that continually gets pointed out as we go through this crisis is the fact that people do live alone, and they could, and, it's not even the COVID-19. People could slip and fall, and nobody would know about it. They could slip and fall and crack their head open, and nobody would be able to check on them because we're doing social distancing. Nobody would know about it until everybody went back to work, and this particular person didn't go and show back up. So I know people are calling, texting, and checking up on people a lot more because of this crisis, and that's something that I do hope we carry into the future, and it's something that I hope happens more and more as we go along. The social distancing has changed the way that we look at things and the way that we feel about people who live alone. And we do make sure to check up on some of these people and call them if we haven't heard from them for a little while. So that's something I hope that we carry on. It's definitely a good sentiment, and I'm thankful for the fact that the practice started. So hopefully let's go ahead and continue with that. Let's do some more of that, and even if we do have to socially isolate ourselves, let's make sure that we can still reach out and lean on each other. Technology has done great things for that, so let's make sure that we do that as well. Well, I will be back here tomorrow with more contemporary, and also, once again, make sure you go and check out Ed Talk on Saturday and Ed's World on Monday. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.